If you ask a standard history textbook when modern nations were born, you usually get a very specific set of relatively recent dates. 1776 for the United States, for example, or 1885 when European powers divided up Africa at the Berlin Conference. Look at this standard historical timeline. We tend to map the birth of civilization by clustering these recognizable dates at the extreme right edge of the spectrum. Using those specific dates creates a massive blind spot. It implies that before the 18th and 19th centuries, these huge continents were empty, ungoverned voids, waiting for European colonizers to arrive and organize them. Let's test that assumption. If we rewind to North America in 1100 AD, more than 6 centuries before the American Revolution, the pristine forests suddenly break to reveal something incredibly complex. You are looking at the Cahokia Mountains in present-day Illinois. By the 12th century, this was a thriving native metropolis built around massive geometric earthworks, requiring highly centralized engineering and governance to construct. Building a city of that scale requires a sophisticated state. Starting our historical calendar at the moment of European contact actively erases the complex indigenous statecraft that had already been operating there for centuries. To see just how deep these sovereign roots go, we have to look past North America and travel to the Great Lakes region of Central and East Africa, where the timeline of civilization stretches back thousands of years. Here, in the ruins of the Nile Valley, towering obelisks and massive stone blocks stand as physical proof of a flourishing African Bronze Age operating in 2500 BC. This map tracks the southward migration of the original founders of these empires, a group known as the Batembuzi. By 1500 BC, they had extended their civilization out of the Nile Valley and deeply into the Great Lakes region. What modern archaeology and oral tradition show us next is a remarkable period of political stability. The Batembuzi successfully maintained a continuous chain of 22 successive rulers. That specific dynasty eventually reached a peaceful transition when the final Batembuzi leaders, Ishaza and Bukuku, passed their symbolic drum of leadership to Bukuku's grandson. That direct passing of the torch establishes an unbroken ancient political continuity. Complex lines of succession were successfully managing massive populations millennia before any European ships arrived on the horizon. That grandson was Nahuda, the first emperor of the new Bakwezi Empire, which was thriving across the region by the year 1000. The Bakwezi pulled off a massive technological leap. They completely bypassed the Bronze Age, moving directly into advanced ironworking and leaving behind complex metallurgical sites at places like Bigo. Beyond metallurgy, the Bakwezi restructured regional agriculture around a specific innovation. Take a look at these Ankole Watusi cattle. The empire popularized this highly adapted livestock breed, demonstrating deep ecological and agricultural expertise. To manage this growing economy, they structured a sprawling government led by 19 different emperors. Notably, that chain of leadership included 3 women holding the highest seat of power. An inclusive, highly organized political structure, paired with advanced iron production, leaves no room for the theory that these populations were stagnant or primitive. Following this timeline forward, we hit a major transition. In 1350, the reign shifted to the Lu people, beginning the Babito dynasty under King Rukidi Mpuga. Under the Babito, the Bunyoro-Kitara Empire reached an incredible scale, exerting deep cultural and economic influence across Central Africa. Eventually, this sprawling administration dissolved into smaller, localized principalities. You would recognize their names today, places like Buganda, the Nyiginya Kingdom in Rwanda, and Karagwe. These modern cultural borders are the direct lineage of a single political system that evolved long before 19th century European boardrooms attempted to redraw the map. Zooming out reveals the true timeline of indigenous statecraft, a continuous 3,000-year spectrum of overlapping dynasties. If we bring back those colonial dates, 1776 and 1885, they are fractions of a second at the very end of the clock. In this historical photograph, you can clearly see that contrast. The brief period of European administration tried to categorize or completely replace indigenous leaders whose inherited sovereignty predated those empires by millennia. Colonization fractured these systems, and the physical damage was devastating, but it failed to erase the reality that these nations successfully governed themselves for thousands of years. Measuring the age of a nation based solely on when an outside force decided to draw a line on a map is entirely inaccurate. True historical literacy requires dropping that colonial calendar entirely. It means acknowledging the political antiquity that built and still supports these nations today.